Okay, let's unpack this. If you're feeling that constant hum of the modern world, the notifications, the pressure, just being pulled everywhere, you're definitely not alone.
Not at all. It can leave you feeling really frayed, right? Like you're caught in this current and just scrambling for something solid.
Yeah, that feeling of emotional strain, even with all the connectivity we have, sometimes real peace feels, well, miles away.
It really can. And that's precisely why the source you shared is so timely for this deep dive. Finding your calm, Buddhism made simple for a hectic world.
Right. So our mission today is basically to pull out the core practical wisdom from this book.
Exactly. Find the tools, the ideas that can genuinely help you discover a bit more peace, maybe some clarity, even joy right in the middle of your actual life.
And importantly, without needing, robes or a whole new identity.
Absolutely. The source really shines in its clear explanations. It gives these tangible tools. They call them micro practices and try this now exercises.
And relatable scenarios too, right? Things you probably recognize from your own day.
Mm-hmm. It's very focused on practical benefits, and the tone is really encouraging.
And it's also upfront about what it's not.
Crucial point.
Yeah.
This isn't about blind faith or some dense philosophy you have to untangle or like instant enlightenment.
No magic wands.
No.
Yeah.
It presents itself as a path you can explore, something you verify through your own experience.
They even give a tiny example right in the intro, that 30-second arrival thing.
Yeah. Just pause, feel your feet on the ground, take one conscious breath.
Notice one thing you see, hear, feel.
It's just an immediate way to kind of land right here.
Simple but effective. It perfectly shows the kind of accessible approach we'll be digging into.
Definitely.
So before we get into the how of finding calm, it probably helps to understand, well, who is the Buddha beyond the statue image?
Good starting point. Yes, the historical figure, Siddhartha Gautama, he was very much a human being born around 2,500 years ago. A prince, actually.
And his father, the story goes, tried to shield him from any kind of suffering.
That's right. Extreme lengths. He grew up in absolute luxury, completely unaware of things like old age, sickness, or death. A total bubble.
But even in the bubble, something wasn't quite right for him.
Exactly. There was this nagging feeling, apparently, that something fundamental was missing. So his curiosity led him outside the palace walls.
And that's when he saw the divine messengers, as they're sometimes called.
Yes, an old person, a sick person, a corpse. And also, importantly, a wandering ascetic, someone who seemed peaceful despite having nothing.
That must have been a shock.
Profoundly. He realized his palace, his future kingdom, none of it offered any real escape from these universal truths of existence. So at 29, he made this huge decision.
The great renunciation.
Right. Left his family, his status, everything, to go search for an end to this suffering he'd just woken up to.
And he didn't find it right away. He tried extreme practices first.
He did. Pushed his body to the absolute limit with fasting and self-denial. But that didn't work either. It just led to more suffering, really.
So that experience led him to the middle way.
Precisely. Avoiding both extremes, the indulgence he grew up with and the harsh asceticism he tried later. Finding balance.
And then came the awakening.
Yes. Sitting under what's now called the Bodhi tree, deep in meditation, he had this breakthrough, a profound insight into the nature of reality, suffering, its cause, its end, and the path to that end.
Becoming the Buddha, the awakened one.
Exactly. And what's so key, as the source emphasizes, is that he didn't become a god. He realized a potential that's inherent in us, in human consciousness.
And he spent the rest of his life teaching others how they could find that same awakening.
For 45 years, yes. Showing the path, but always emphasizing personal experience. Famously telling people to be a lamp unto yourselves. Investigate it, test it, don't just believe it.
Which connects back to us, the listeners. The book encourages you to reflect on your own quests, right? In chapter 1.
It asks, what are your big questions about life, happiness, meaning? Have you felt that sense that something's missing, even when things look okay? What are you searching for?
Because Siddhartha's journey started from those same kinds of fundamental human questions.
Exactly. It makes it relatable.
Okay, so understanding the Buddha as a guide, his journey, that brings us to the core teaching, the four big truths, or four noble truths.
Right. The source presents them almost like a doctor's diagnosis.
Right.
Here's the illness, here's what's causing it, good news, there's a cure, and here's the prescription.
Realistic, but ultimately optimistic.
Very much so, because they point towards freedom.
So let's look at the first one. Truth, #1, life includes dukkha. And the source is careful to explain this isn't just like agony.
No, exactly. Dukkha is a Pali word, hard to translate perfectly. It covers suffering, yes, but also stress, dissatisfaction, unease, imperfection, that background hum of unsatisfactoriness.
It's acknowledging that in our sort of default, unawakened state, some level of discomfort is just part of the deal.
Right. Not that life is only suffering, but that dukkha is woven into it until we change our relationship to it.
And the source breaks it down into different types.
Yes, usefully. There's the obvious. Suffering, physical pain, grief, loss. Pretty clear.
Then suffering of change.
Right. Things not lasting. Good times ending. Relationships changing. Our bodies aging. The fact of impermanence itself can be a source of dukkha because we resist it.
And the third one is more subtle.
The suffering of conditioned existence, that sort of background restlessness, the feeling that something's not quite right, even when things are objectively fine, that is this all there is? Feeling.
The example they use of the promotion you didn't get really captures those layers.
It does. The obvious bit is the disappointment, right?
Yeah. Then the change part is your expectation being dashed. Things didn't go the way you wanted.
And subtle dissatisfaction could be the stress before the decision, or maybe even, ironically, the feeling after getting a promotion, sometimes a brief high, then back to baseline unease. Dukkha finds a way.
So just acknowledging this isn't negative thinking, it's realism.
Exactly. It's the first step. You can't fix a problem until you admit it's there. Like knowing you have a headache.
Okay, so dukkha is part of the picture. Why? Truth, #2 gives the cause, tanha.
Kana. Often translated as craving, thirst, grasping, desire. But it's not just simple wishes, like wishing someone well.
It's more intense, more automatic.
Yeah, it's often unconscious, self-centered wanting or pushing away. Aversion is the flip side of craving. It's this constant drive to get what we want and get rid of what we don't want. That's identified as the root cause of dukkha.
And that push-pull creates a lot of tension, right? The book uses that tug-of-war analogy.
It does. The strain you feel is the pulling, the craving. It's the tension between how things are and how we demand they be.
And there are different kinds of this tanha.
3 main types are usually identified. Craving for sense pleasures, wanting pleasant sights, sounds, tastes, feelings, clinging to them.
Makes sense.
Then craving for existence or becoming. This is wanting things to continue, wanting them to be a certain way, wanting yourself to become something specific, holding on to identity, seeking permanence in a world that isn't permanent.
Okay. And the third?
Craving for non-existence. This is aversion. Wanting to get rid of unpleasant feelings, uncomfortable situations, difficult people, pushing away reality.
So it's this fundamental resistance to change, trying to freeze frame the pleasant and delete the unpleasant.
You got it. Trying to make things solid and stable when their nature is to flow and change.
How do you even start noticing this in yourself? It sounds so automatic.
The source offers a great little noticing a craving micro-practice for that.
Oh yeah, what's involved?
Super simple. Just pause when you feel that pull or push. Internally label it wanting or pushing away or craving. Then notice where you feel it in your body. Shoulders tense, stomach tight.
And then just watch it.
Yeah. Just observe it with curiosity. No judgment. You're not bad for having the feeling. Just seeing it clearly can start to loosen its grip, create a little space.
Okay, so problem dukkha, cause tanha, this craving. It might still feel a bit heavy, but then comes truth, #3.
The good news.
Yes.
Truth, #3. There's an end to dukkha, and that end state is called nirvana.
This is the really hopeful part of the teaching.
Absolutely. And nirvana isn't some paradise in the sky. It's described as a state of mind. The word literally means something like to extinguish.
Extinguish what?
The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. The very roots of that craving, that tanha we were just talking about.
So what's left when those fires are out? What does that state feel like?
It's described with qualities like profound peace, deep inner stillness, freedom, real freedom from the compulsive grip of craving and aversion, clarity and wisdom, seeing things as they truly are, and boundless compassion for yourself and everyone else.
Wow. So it's the end of that inner battle, that tug of war.
Exactly. And the source emphasizes it fundamentally changes your relationship to life's ups and downs. Difficult things still happen. Pain, loss, change, they're part of life.
But you don't add the extra layer.
Precisely. You don't add that second arrow of suffering. The mental anguish, the resistance, the stories we tell ourselves about the difficulty. The initial pain might be there, but the suffering around it dissolves.
They use that little anecdote about Mark going from anxious to more accepting.
Right, a fictional illustration. He didn't suddenly become immune to things that triggered anxiety. But through practice, His relationship to the anxiety shifted.
How so?
He could notice it without being totally consumed by it. Find some inner space, even when things felt uncertain. Respond more thoughtfully instead of just reacting automatically. That shows those qualities of nirvana peace, clarity starting to develop. It's attainable.
Okay, so nirvana is possible. An end to suffering is possible. How? That brings us to truth, #4.
The path to the end. The Noble Eightfold Path. This is the practical stuff, the how-to guide, the prescription from the doctor.
This is the map for you to cultivate that freedom.
Exactly. And the source stresses it's not 8 sequential steps like climbing stairs. It's more like 8 strands woven together to make a strong rope. You cultivate them all simultaneously.
And they fall into 3 main groups.
Right. That provides a helpful structure. Wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. These categories hold the 8 factors.
Got it. So this is where the theory really becomes practice. The toolkit for actually changing your experience.
Let's dive into those tools, starting with the wisdom category. Seeing things clearly. Factor 1 is understanding.
Right. Understanding. What does that mean in practice?
It means really getting, on a deep level, reality as it is. Not just how you wish it was or how you assume it is.
So understanding the 4 noble truths themselves.
Yes, that's foundational. But also other key insights like impermanence, really seeing that everything changes, nothing is fixed. And anatta.
Anatta, the idea of no fixed permanent self.
Exactly. Understanding that there isn't a solid, unchanging me at the core. And also understanding karma, the law of cause and effect, that our intentional actions have consequences.
So it's not just think positive, it's about seeing the whole picture, the good, the bad, the temporary nature of it all.
Perfectly put. Accepting the arising and the passing away of everything without demanding it be different.
Why is understanding anatta, no fixed self, so important for reducing suffering? That seems kind of abstract.
It seems abstract, but it hits right at the core of our grasping. So much of our suffering comes from trying to protect, promote, or make permanent this idea of a fixed me or mine.
Ah, okay.
If you start to see the self as more like a process, a constantly changing flow of experiences, rather than a solid thing, well, your grip naturally loosens.
So you suffer less when things change, or your identity feels threatened.
Right, because you weren't clinging quite so tightly to a static idea of me in the first place. It frees you up enormously.
Okay. Building on right understanding is the second wisdom factor. Right intention, or right thought.
Yes, this is about the why behind what you do, say, or even think.
Yeah.
Checking your motivation.
What kind of intentions should you cultivate?
The source highlights 3 wholesome ones. The intention of renunciation, which means letting go, loosening the grip of craving and attachment. The intention of goodwill, cultivating kindness, friendliness, wishing well for yourself and others. And the intention of harmlessness, compassion, actively avoiding causing suffering.
So our intentions are like the steering wheel.
Kind of, yeah. Shifting from intentions based on greed, aversion, or confusion towards these wholesome intentions, letting go, kindness, clarity, changes everything. Your experience, your impact.
And there's a practice for this too, that check your intentions for 1 hour. Try this now.
Exactly. Super simple, but revealing. Before you act, speak, even just scroll online, pause. What's the underlying intention here? Is it coming from a clear place or reactivity? Just noticing.
Okay, moving to the second category, ethical conduct, how we live in the world. Factor 3 is right speech.
Words have power, huge power. Right speech is about using them skillfully, truthfully, kindly, helpfully, and at the right time. Promoting harmony, not conflict.
The book gives that great filter, the 4 gates of speech.
Yeah, it's a fantastic practical tool. Before speaking, ask yourself, 1, is it true? 2, is it kind? 3, is it necessary or helpful? 4, is it the right time and place?
That filter alone could change a lot of conversations.
Wouldn't it? It also means consciously avoiding lying, gossip, harsh words, divisive talk, and just idle chatter that doesn't really serve anyone, especially crucial in difficult conversations.
Then factor 4,
Right.
action, our physical behavior.
Right. Acting ethically, avoiding causing harm through your body. The traditional examples are refraining from killing or harming living beings, not taking what isn't freely given, so no stealing, cheating, exploitation, and avoiding sexual misconduct, meaning actions based on harm, coercion, or exploitation.
So living with basic integrity.
Exactly. How you conduct yourself physically in the world.
And linked to that is factor 5, right livelihood, how you earn your living.
Yes. earning a living in a way that doesn't harm others, avoiding trades that inherently cause suffering, like dealing in weapons, poisons, slaves, intoxicants, or exploiting living beings.
The core idea is work that's at least harmless and ideally beneficial.
That's the aim, and this naturally leads you to reflect. Does my work align with my values? The source mentions a pathway, feeling misaligned in your job.
Which suggests ways to explore that, maybe make shifts even within your current situation.
Exactly. It doesn't have to mean quitting your job tomorrow,
Yeah.
but looking for ways to bring more ethical alignment into your work life.
Okay, final category. Mental discipline, training the mind itself. Factor 6 is right effort.
Right effort. And this isn't about just gritting your teeth and trying harder. It's skillful effort, balanced energy.
Like tuning an instrument not too tight, not too loose.
Perfect analogy. It's about applying energy wisely in 4 ways.
Yep.
1, to prevent unwholesome states like anger or jealousy from arising in the first place.
Okay,
2, to abandon or let go of unwholesome states that have already arisen.
got it.
3, to cultivate wholesome states like kindness or concentration that haven't yet
It's
arisen.
like 4.
4, to maintain and develop wholesome states that are already present.
So it's actively shaping your mental landscape, like noticing worry starting and gently turning the mind towards the breath instead.
Exactly. It's the conscious directing of mental energy away from what's unhelpful and towards what is beneficial and freeing. Wisely applied effort.
And then factor 7, the big one these days.
Right. Okay.
Mindfulness. The source calls it your superpower.
It really is foundational, and Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition is so often quoted because it's clear. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally.
So it's active, not passive. Alert awareness.
Yes. Alert, present, and kind awareness of what's happening right now, both inside you and around you. Stepping off that mental autopilot we spend so much time on.
And the benefits are pretty well documented now, aren't they?
Increasingly so. The source highlights what the research shows. Reduce stress, definitely. Improve focus. Better emotional regulation, not being so tossed around by moods. Increase self-awareness. Less reactivity. You actually get to experience your life as it unfolds.
How do you practice it? The book mentions different focuses.
Yeah. Common anchors for mindfulness practice include the breath. It's always there, always changing. Great anchor. The mind will wander. That's normal. The practice is gently bringing it back again and again.
Okay. What else?
The body, doing a body scan, noticing physical sensations without judging them. Feelings, observing emotions as they rise and pass, like waves, noticing where you feel them physically without getting swept away. And thoughts, watching thoughts come and go like clouds, seeing them as mental events, not necessarily true, or you, realizing you are the observer of the thoughts.
The mindful commuting example seems really practical, turning a potentially stressful time into practice.
Totally. Or the 5-minute mindful check-in, just pausing during your day to notice breath, body, mind. Anyone can try that. It's accessible.
Finally, factor 8, right concentration or right meditation.
Right concentration or samadhi. This is about developing a focused, stable, unified mind.
Why is concentration so important?
Think of that muddy water analogy again. You can't see clearly if the water's all stirred up. Concentration is the practice of letting the mud, the mental chatter and distractions settle down so that clarity or wisdom can emerge.
And this is built through meditation, focusing on one thing.
Often, yes. Sustained focus, usually on an object like the breath, builds this capacity for stillness and clarity over time, and it's deeply interconnected with right effort, the energy to stay focused, and right mindfulness, the awareness to notice when you've drifted and gently return.
Wow. So the Eightfold Path is really this integrated system.
Absolutely. Wisdom to see clearly, ethics to live well and reduce external friction, and mental discipline to train the mind directly, managing our internal reactions.
And the promise, the potential, is that by working with all these together, you can address that root cause, Tanha, the craving.
And move towards nirvana, toward that state of genuine peace, freedom, and clarity. Less suffering, more connection.
But it's a practice, a cultivation, right? The source emphasizes patience.
Hugely important. This isn't about instant perfection. It's a journey.
Okay.
It requires patience, diligence, and a lot of self-kindness along the way. But these are the tools.
Tools for finding your calm, your clarity, your joy, not by escaping life, but by being more fully present right here within your perfectly imperfect life.
That sums it up beautifully.
So, bringing this all together, if we really take in these core ideas that everything is impermanent, including our feelings and even our sense of self, dukkha of change, anatta, and that our suffering largely stems from craving for things not to change, for permanence, for a fixed self, tanha,
Yeah.
Then the question we can leave you with to mull over is this. In a world defined by constant change, what happens to our experience of life? What happens to our own personal quests? When we start to genuinely accept and maybe even learn to flow with that inherent impermanence rather than constantly fighting against it, what possibilities open up then?